Mina Sutter said she was going to report Louise Chen and demanded she pay back $1,248,000 in back wages. Louise laughed. 15 years ago, Mina had sat on the curb crying, begging Louise to help her pay into Social Security, promising she'd pay it back once she got on her feet. Now Mina wore the Chanel Louise had bought her, rode in Louise's car, and told her if she didn't hand over the money, she'd take it straight to the Social Security Bureau. What Mina didn't know, her new young boyfriend had been convicted of fraud 3 years ago and given a suspended sentence. The tea house she'd just opened bore her name as legal representative, but his father held the controlling shares. She also didn't know Louise had already prepared a self-audit report. If we're going down together. But Mina, you might destroy me. Can you afford to destroy yourself? The scent of Buddha jumping over the wall soup filled the living room. Louise had simmered it all day, just because Mina had always loved it, ever since they'd lived in that cramped walk-up. Back then, Mina used to say that when they were rich, she'd eat it every single day. They'd been broke, a month's wages between them barely covered 2 pounds of pork ribs. Buddha jumping over the wall was something you smelled through the TV screen. Later, when Louise's business took off, the first real dish she mastered was that soup, because Mina had called it the one thing she wanted most in the world. The bowls were still on the table. Mina leaned back in Louise's mahogany dining chair, picking her teeth with a wooden toothpick, her eyes unnaturally bright. She moved the toothpick from one corner of her mouth to the other like she was mulling over something momentous, her crossed legs swinging, the tip of her stiletto tapping rhythmically against the floor tiles. Thud, 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 like a death knell. Louise, we've been friends for over 20 years, so let me be straight with you. Mina finally spoke, her voice carrying a certainty Louise had never heard before, like she held an unbeatable hand. You've been carrying me on your payroll for 15 years. You paid me actual wages for the first 2, but the other 13? I never set foot in your office. You owe me that salary, don't you? Otherwise, I take this to the Social Security and report you for phantom employment. That's not a small thing, you know. Louise's hand froze around her teacup. Hot water splashed over the rim, scalding the web of her thumb. But she didn't let go, just held it there, watching the ripples circle outward in the white porcelain. Mina was still smiling, the corners of her mouth curved up, the fine lines around her eyes crinkling, just like any other cozy evening. But the words coming out of her mouth were a blade, straight into the softest part of Louise's chest. Did she even realize that if she actually reported her, those 15 years of contributions would be wiped out for Mina too? She was supposed to retire next year. Pension. Healthcare. All of it gone. The second half of her life hadn't even started, and she'd strangle it in the crib with her own hands. Mina was the type who never shut up about retirement. I'm buying a place in Yunnan the minute I retire, she'd tell everyone. Her entire social media feed was photos of bed and breakfasts in Dali and Lijiang. She knew better than anyone what those Social Security contributions meant. But she was gambling anyway. Gambling that Louise couldn't bear to lose her. That Louise would just write the check. Mina, you never worked a single day at my company. Louise set the cup down. The red mark on her palm was already swelling, stinging hot. How can you say that? The contract was signed, the Social Security got paid, we agreed you'd work remotely, remember? Mina tossed the toothpick onto the table, still grinning. God, Louise, you're so literal. Who clocks in anymore? I was thinking about your business every day from home anyway. She made it sound so easy, like those 15 years had just materialized out of thin air. Back then, Mina had been hawking clothes from a street stall, freezing in winter with her cracked hands wrapped in gauze, sweating in summer as she ran from the code enforcement officers. She'd begged Louise to cover her Social Security, promising to pay it back with interest once she stabilized. Then she got into those spiritual retreats, traveling around. Then multi-level marketing. Then live streaming. 3 years, 5 different gigs, each time swearing, this one's going to work, and each time bleeding money. She never mentioned the Social Security again. Louise, out of loyalty to a friend she'd known since childhood, just kept paying it. Every month, when Owen Zhou, her finance director, ran the payroll and asked, "Still keeping Mina on the books?" Louise would say, "Leave it." She left it for 15 years, an old debt nobody talked about. Now that old debt had been dug up, and a new bill was due. "You didn't even have a business license when you were selling on the street. If I hadn't pulled strings to get you that contract." Enough with the ancient history. Mina waved a dismissive hand, the rhinestones on her nails catching the light. "Just tell me, are you paying or not? 8,000 a month, 13 years, 1,248,000. I'll even forget the change. Your company's not doing great right now, I know, but you can still scrape that together, can't you?" She reached for another piece of braised pork. Louise watched that hand come toward the plate and saw the watch on her wrist, a Longines. They'd been shopping together last month. Mina had said she liked it, and Louise had swiped her card. 23,000. Mina had grabbed her arm and said, "Louise, you're too good to me. Next life, I'm coming back as your sister." That was 1 month ago. Louise grabbed the plate and flipped it upside down on the tablecloth in front of Mina. Grease splattered everywhere. The dark sauce from the braised pork bloomed across the cream-colored Chanel suit like an ugly ink painting. Mina froze. She looked down at the stain on her jacket, opened her mouth, closed it, and when she opened it again, her eyes were already red-rimmed. Louise had bought her that suit last week, swiped her card again, 30-something thousand. Mina had twirled in front of the mirror 3 times, saying, "This makes my waist look tiny." Now you couldn't see any waist at all, just that spreading, oily smear dripping down the fabric onto the mahogany table, 1 drop, 2 drops. When she looked up again, her eyes were still red, but her voice had gone cold as ice. "Louise, your business is hurting now, isn't it? I know how much your construction supply company lost last year. You think I don't? Let me tell you something, I'm not here to beg. You can still fix this. Give me the money, and we're still sisters. If you don't," she paused, pulling her mouth into an awkward smirk, "then I guess I'll have to pay the Social Security a visit." Louise took a deep breath. The air still smelled of Buddha jumping over the wall, mingling with the greasy aroma of braised pork, cloying and nauseating. She remembered that afternoon 15 years ago. Mina squatting on the curb, crying, as the code enforcement officers threw her merchandise, piece by piece, into the back of their pickup. All those colorful clothes arcing through the air like worthless rags. Mina had called Louise, her voice cracked, "Louise, I've got nothing left." Louise had just come from a client meeting, still in her 7-centimeter heels, and she'd run all the way there, crouched down, and wrapped her arms around Mina. Mina's tears had soaked into Louise's neck, cool and wet. "Louise, please just help me with the Social Security. I'll pay you back, I swear, once I get back on my feet. You remember the year you had that ectopic pregnancy and hemorrhaged? I carried you 2 blocks on my back to flag down a taxi." Louise's voice was so calm it sounded foreign to her own ears. "One of my heels broke off. I ran barefoot over broken glass. I still have the scar on the bottom of my foot. Do you remember?" Mina's eyes flickered away, dropping to the grease stain on her jacket like it was the most important thing in the world. "That's all in the past. Why do you always bring that up, Louise? What, you think because you saved my life once I owe you forever? You lost 300,000 on that live streaming disaster. Who transferred money into your account without a second thought? Enough. God, you're exhausting." Mina shot up from her chair, the legs scraping against the floor with a sound like nails on glass. "I helped you too, okay? When you had that fever, I ordered you delivery. You never remember the good things. And I promoted your products on my live stream too, didn't sell much, but you have to give me credit for trying. She stood there, chest heaving, the stain on her Chanel still dripping, completely oblivious. Her phone buzzed. It was that overly sweet voice assistant tone. Louise recognized it immediately. Their former security guard, Brandon Zhao, 26 or 27, clean-cut with a honeyed tongue. Mina had met him a few times when she visited Louise at the office. Somehow they'd exchanged WeChat. Then Louise noticed Brandon had quit, and Mina's social media started featuring cryptic shots of him. Mina glanced at the screen, a flush of coquettishness crossing her face, then she schooled her features back into sternness. 3 days. Transfer it to my payroll account. Louise, don't push me. Let's end this clean. 3 days, and if I don't see that money, you'll have Social Security investigators at your door. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and that self-audit report you're thinking about? Don't bother. I heard your company's books had some irregularities last year. Guess who I heard it from? Louise's stomach dropped. Mina. She called after her. Do you know anything about Brandon's background? His background is none of your business. Mina whirled around, her eyes as sharp as knives. In that instant, Louise saw something she'd never seen on Mina's face before, a nearly manic possessiveness, and a defensiveness that flared at being caught. You can't get a man, so nobody else should have one. Louise, the only thing you've got over me is money. Once I get that money, I'm done with you. She slammed the door. The heavy solid wood door crashed against the frame, rattling the painting on the wall so it hung crooked. The snow fungus soup was still bubbling in the kitchen. Louise hadn't had a single sip. She stood there, listening to the retreating click of Mina's heels down the hallway, fainter and fainter, until they vanished entirely. She was alone in the living room. Just her. And the lingering scent of Buddha jumping over the wall. Her 10-year-old German shepherd, General, padded over from the balcony and nudged her hand with his head. He was old now, white hairs around his muzzle, movements slower than they used to be, but he still pushed his head into Louise's palm, his warm breath puffing against her skin. Louise crouched down and wrapped her arms around his warm body, burying her face in his thick fur. General's tail wagged slowly, once, twice, like he was telling her it would be okay. She stayed like that for a full 5 minutes. Then she stood up, wiped her face, and grabbed her phone. Owen. She dialed her finance director. Her voice was steady, surprising even herself. Pull every social security record and payroll record involving Mina Sutter for the last 15 years. I need them tonight. Louise, what happened? Owen's voice was groggy, he'd clearly been getting ready for bed. Someone's threatening to report us for phantom employment. 3 seconds of silence, then the click-clack of a keyboard. Owen was pulling up the data. After a moment, how much are we talking? 15 years of Social Security contributions, 2 years of actual wages. She just demanded back pay for 13 years, over $1 million, claiming she'd been working remotely. Owen let out a low whistle. Louise, if that gets investigated. I know. That's why we strike first. She hung up and called Mr. Fong, their legal counsel. It rang 5 times before he picked up, his voice blurry, clearly already in bed. Mr. Fong, hypothetical question. If a company voluntarily self-audits and reports phantom employment, what's the penalty? After hearing the details, Mr. Fong was quiet for a moment. There was the rustle of him getting up, then the squeak of a study door opening. For voluntary correction, you're looking at back taxes and penalties. Fines are discretionary. Since you only actually paid wages for 2 years, the overstated costs aren't enormous. If you cooperate fully, it'll likely stay administrative, no criminal exposure. But what? But the person whose social security was fraudulently claimed, her records get wiped. 15 years, gone. Any healthcare benefits she already used would have to be repaid. And she could face criminal liability for social security fraud. She knew she wasn't actually working and collected benefits anyway. That's fraud, plain and simple. Louise stood on the balcony, phone pressed to her ear, the night wind blowing through her hair. She looked out at the city lights below, winking on one by one like 1,000 cold eyes watching her. Mr. Fong, she said, if I turn myself in and lay everything out, what happens to her side of it? The regulations apply. The Social Security Bureau investigates and acts accordingly, suspensions, clawbacks, whatever's mandated. You can't control that. You can only manage your own exposure. Understood. Sorry for the late call. Louise. Mr. Fong paused. You and that woman. I mean, if you feel conflicted, you could give her a heads up. 15 years isn't nothing. Louise laughed. Mr. Fong, she already has a knife at my throat. If I warn her, do you think she'd let go? A long silence. Take care of yourself. I'll have my assistant send you the self-audit template tomorrow. After she hung up, Louise stood on the balcony for a long time, letting the wind wash over her. General lay at her feet, his chin resting on her slipper, a warm weight. She remembered Mina squatting outside her office door 15 years ago. Louise had just rented that office space, the paint still fresh. Mina pushed through the door, face streaked with dust, hair a mess, and just squatted there and cried, hiccuping, Louise, I can't do this anymore. Please. Louise hadn't had much money then either, she'd just landed a small construction project, and upfront costs had choked her cash flow. But seeing Mina like that, her heart softened, and she said yes. She had Owen draw up a contract, processed Mina's onboarding, opened a payroll account, and paid the Social Security contributions every month. Mina had clutched that bank card and cried even harder, Louise, you're my savior. I'll never forget this. That softness had lasted 15 years. In that time, Mina had married twice and divorced twice, Louise by her side through every breakdown. The first divorce, her husband cheated. Mina called Louise at 3 a.m, he's seeing someone else. Louise drove over without a second thought, found Mina sitting on the curb in her pajamas, barefoot. Louise draped her coat over her, took her home, and cried with her for 3 days. The second divorce was worse, the guy cleaned out Mina's savings, even took the TV. Mina moved into Louise's house and lost 10 pounds, crying every day. Louise's daughter, Yo-Yo, was in middle school then, calling her Auntie Mina, bringing her candied hawthorns from the corner store after class. Then Mina wanted to study spirituality. I need to find my inner peace, she said. Louise gave her 50,000 for the course. Mina came back after 6 months, said the teacher had it all wrong, and started selling energized bracelets on social media, $38 a pop. Louise bought 10 for clients. Then she wanted to live stream. Said she had the face for it, would definitely blow up. Louise cleared out a spare studio at the office and had IT set her up with top-tier gear. Mina broadcast for 3 months. Her peak viewership, 7 people, 2 of which were Louise's burner accounts. Then she said her mortgage was about to default. Louise transferred 200,000 in one lump sum, labeled loan, in the memo. Mina never mentioned paying it back. Louise had never tallied it all up. Because in her heart, Mina was the closest person in the world to her besides Yo-Yo. They'd grown up together, lived in the same walk-up for over a decade. Mina's parents were gone early, she was raised by her grandmother. Louise's family always sent 2 bowls of dumplings over. They'd shared the same candy, the same clothes, the same bed. When Louise gave birth to Yo-Yo, Mina waited outside the delivery room all night. When the nurse brought the baby out, Mina was the first to rush over, tears falling onto the swaddling cloth. And now Mina sat in her dining room, picking her teeth, cheerfully demanding over $1 million in back wages. Her phone buzzed again. Owen. Louise, I've pulled everything. 15 years, contract, Social Security contributions, payroll records. Also, he paused. Front desk said a woman's been hanging around the building the last few days, asking the cleaning lady about your schedule, when you come and go, which entrance, where you park. The receptionist took a photo. Take a look, is this Mina? A photo came through. A woman in a mask and a baseball cap pulled low, in a dimly lit corridor. But Louise recognized the build instantly, 5'5", lean but broad-shouldered, with that slight outward toe when she walked. The Chanel suit was half hidden under a jacket, but the cuff buttons, gold, four-leaf clover shaped, Louise had picked those out with her. Mina was casing her. She was really going to do it. She wasn't joking. Louise's fingers went white around the phone, knuckles cracking. Owen, call a department heads meeting for 8 tomorrow morning. And look into someone for me, Brandon Zhao. Former security guard here, left under some circumstances. Find out what he's up to now and what his connection is to Mina. Brandon. Owen's tone shifted. Louise, you don't know. He opened a tea house in the south part of town last month. Mina's name is on the sign. I drove past and wondered when she became a tea house owner. Peeked inside, nice setup, Jingdezhen tea ware, the works. Louise closed her eyes. Mina had always said she hated business, too much stress, wanted to stay a free spirit. Why would she suddenly open a tea house? Unless someone was pushing her. And that someone was probably whispering, babe, in her ear, convincing her to drain Louise dry. Owen, before tomorrow's meeting, do me a favor. Go check the business registration at that tea house, who's the actual legal representative. And pull Brandon's credit history and any legal records. Fast as you can. On it. I'll have someone work on it tonight. Results by morning. Louise stepped onto the balcony again. General followed her out and lay at her feet, his tail sweeping slowly across the tiles. The night wind carried the first chill of autumn, and somewhere in the distance, the hum of traffic on the elevated highway rose and fell like a city's pulse. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to Mina's WeChat. The last message was from 3 days ago. Louise, I'm coming over for dinner tomorrow. I'm craving your snow fungus soup. 3 hearts. Louise had replied, sure thing, with a smiley emoji. Now it hit her, even then, Mina was already scheming. When she typed that message, she was probably leaning into Brandon's arms saying, watch, my idiot sister will pay up. They'd laughed together at Louise's stupidity, her softness, at how her decade and a half of devotion had just become their jackpot. Louise flipped her phone face down on the railing and took a deep breath. The cold air filled her lungs. Mina, 15 years. If you think I'm a pushover, come at me. Let's see whose hand shatters first. By 7 the next morning, Louise was at the office. She'd always been an early riser, 15 years and never changed. The cleaning staff knew her, called out, morning, Louise, and she'd nod. But today the office was eerily quiet, only half the lights on, just the finance and legal departments glowing like 2 sleepy eyes in the high-rise. Owen was already there, seated in the conference room with 3 stacks of documents in front of him, dark circles under his eyes from pulling an all-nighter. His coffee cup was empty, dried rings staining the side. When he saw Louise, he stood and slid a folder toward her. I've got it. Louise sat down and opened the first page. The tea house's business registration. Legal representative, Mina Sutter. Established 2 months ago, registered capital $1 million, 0 paid in. But the shareholder list showed Brandon Zhao's father, Derek Zhao, holding 70%. Mina held only 30%. On paper, Mina's the legal face. In reality, the Zhaos control everything. Owen pointed to another document. Brandon's from Hunan. His dad ran a brick kiln back home, went bankrupt, skipped town with debts and moved here to live with his son. Last year, Derek was working as a security guard at a construction site. This year, suddenly, he's got 700,000 in registered capital, source unknown. Louise turned the page. Brandon has a record. 3 years ago, back home, he got a suspended sentence for fraud. Fake construction projects, solicited investors. He set up a shell company, claimed he had government contracts, took 2 people for over 600,000, and vanished. They caught him later. Suspended sentence, 2 years, just expired this year. One of his victims was his girlfriend at the time. She invested 200,000 and helped him take out loan shark money. She had a breakdown, went back to her parents' place. Louise's nails dug into her palm. Go on. Owen flipped to page 3. Brandon's got 2 credit cards, one from China Merchants Bank, one from Ping An, overdue by over a year. Total balance about 120,000. The banks have sued. Court summonses got sent to our office because his social security was still linked here for a month after he left. HR dragged their feet transferring it. Why was his social security still here? Departure paperwork got held up. A month's delay. That's when the bank letters started coming. He turned another page. Plus, he's been in and out of a gambling den the last 3 months, out west, called Good Luck. Fronts as a game room, but it's a casino. Word is he's lost a lot, not sure how much, but he supposedly put his car up as collateral. A used BMW he bought earlier this year, financed through Mina's ID. Does Mina know any of this? Probably not. Or, Owen hesitated. Doesn't want to. Louise, I asked around. Mina's been posting new bags and jewelry on her feed, plus that BMW, saying she earned it through live streaming. But her stream's dead, under 2,000 a month in revenue. Her tips last month. 4 yuan and 70 cents. Louise walked to the window. Below, traffic was already gridlocked, horns faintly rising through the glass. People rushing, each with their own schemes and struggles. She remembered Mina at her dining table yesterday, legs crossed, picking her teeth, demanding $1 million as if she knew Louise couldn't say no. Why was she so sure? Because of 15 years of history. History that Mina had turned into a weapon. Owen, she turned back. Can the self-audit be ready today? Yes. Owen nodded. Finance has all the data. Legal's drafting the narrative as we speak. We'll submit to the tax and social security authorities voluntarily, admit phantom employment, pay all back contributions. Mr. Fong sent the template. I'll polish it this afternoon and it's ready to file. How much? Excluding late fees and penalties, the overstated costs work out to about 700,000 in back taxes. With penalties and interest, call it 1.5 million total. We have the liquidity, but it'll hit next quarter's cash flow. That Southside construction project deposit is due next month. If we shell out this $1.5 million, we might need to ask the client for an extension. Do it, Louise said. I'll handle the extension. Let's close this out. Owen nodded, then hesitated. Louise, about Mina's social security records. Follow the rules. Freeze it, claw it back. We don't have the authority to cover up her fraud. Mr. Fong said it's her administrative liability to bear. What if she? She said she was going to report me. Louise smiled. I'm saving her the trouble. I'll report myself. Owen blinked, then slowly nodded. Got it. I'll prepare everything. Once the docs are finalized, I'll send them to you for signature, then we file. He reached the door and turned back. One more thing. That cleaning lady, the one Brandon referred, Lu Tsuehua, she quit last week, said she was going home for family reasons. I had someone check her file. Any red flags? Security said she left very late last Thursday, nearly 11 p.m., with a big bag. Camera didn't catch her taking any company property, though. She carried the bag into the elevator, carried it out, still full. But we found shredded paper in the trash can by her workstation. Pieces mixed in with regular waste. What kind of paper? We pieced it together. Owen pulled out an A4 sheet taped together from fragments, edges ragged from tearing. It's a copy of your personal income tax return from last year. Shredded and tossed. Print records don't match any company printer, she must have brought it in from outside and ripped it up in the office. Louise stared at the paper. The tax form had her ID number, home address, bank card digits, and information about Yo-Yo, her ID number, school, class. Everything. What was Mina doing with this? What was she planning? Did she photograph it or copy it? Camera blind spot, we can't confirm. Her station's next to the break room, blocked by a fire extinguisher cabinet. But the shredding was thorough, fingernail-sized pieces, looks like destruction, not theft. If she wanted to take it, she'd have folded it in half and pocketed it. No need to shred that fine. Louise sank slowly back into her chair. Mina. You'd better just be trying to scare me. If you so much as breathe on my daughter. Owen, get me Captain Lin at the South Precinct. I need to report something. Will do. The door clicked shut, and Louise sat alone in the quiet. Morning light slanted through the blinds, striping her desk in gold. The pothose plant on her desk gleamed, its heart-shaped leaves lush and full. Mina had given that to her. Last year, on Louise's birthday, Mina had gone to 5 different flower markets to find that particular, heartleaf, variety. She'd carried the pot all the way to the office, sweating, saying, "It took 5 markets, this represents the 2 of us, heart to heart." Louise's eyes had welled up right there. She'd placed it in the most prominent spot on her desk, watered it daily, and watched it flourish. Now she looked at it, leaves still green, still heart-shaped. But heart to heart sounded like a punchline. She picked up the pot and set it on the floor. That still felt too close. She moved it again, tucking it beside the filing cabinet next to a stack of old newspapers. Then she dialed Yo-Yo. "Sweetie, everything okay at school? Has anyone strange added you on WeChat or called?" "No, Mom, why?" Yo-Yo's voice was thick with sleep. College kids loved sleeping in on weekends. "Nothing, I just miss you. I'll come see you next week, got you some earrings." "Mom, you spend too much." "It's not waste. Who else am I going to spend it on? Just don't go crazy. I lost one of my earrings last week, I'm still upset." "Lost one? I'll get you new ones. Your school address hasn't changed, right?" "No, why are you asking?" "Just confirming. Be careful out there, okay? Don't open the door for anyone. Leave delivery food outside." "Mom, you're acting so weird. Did something happen?" "No, just thinking about you. Go back to sleep." "Okay, I'll sleep a little more. Take care of yourself." "I will. Bye." She hung up and leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes. The sun warmed through her eyelids, a soft orange glow. 15 years. Time to settle the account. 3 days later, the self-audit was filed. Louise delivered it in person. She wore a charcoal suit, her hair pinned up neatly, a folder in her bag containing Owen's 3 nights' worth of documents, 15 years of Social Security contributions, payroll records, contract copies, the narrative, the remediation plan, the payment budget, everything in order. She handed it over at the Social Security Service window. The clerk flipped through, glanced up. Voluntary self-audit. Yes. Our company had a phantom employment arrangement, one individual, 15 years, only 2 years of actual wages. I'm here to self-report and apply to pay all back contributions. Wait here. I'll get my supervisor. 15 minutes later, Louise sat across from two investigators, Officer Liu and Officer Wang, both middle-aged, experienced-looking. They went through the documents meticulously, every page, pausing occasionally to make notes. Ms. Chen, Officer Liu finally looked up, we've reviewed your preliminary submission. 15 years of phantom employment, that's substantial, not many voluntary cases go back that far. But the plus side is your cooperation and completeness. Voluntary correction is viewed favorably. Penalties will be assessed accordingly, likely administrative with back taxes and late fees, fines secondary. Thank you, Officer Liu. We'll provide any additional documents you need, just let me know. All right then. The process takes about a week. Call me if you have questions. He handed her a business card. Louise accepted it with both hands. Thank you. Outside the Social Security building, the sun blazed, making her squint. She stood on the steps, phone buzzing in her pocket. Mina. She answered, but didn't speak. Louise. 3 days are up, ready to wire the money. Mina's voice was breezy, background clatter of teacups, distant conversation. She was at that tea house, chatting with someone, radiating smug confidence. Mina, Louise said evenly, I filed a self-audit with the Social Security Bureau this morning. I admitted the phantom employment arrangement. 2 seconds of silence. Then the crash of a shattered teacup, a sharp gasp. What? I said I came clean. Your Social Security records will be wiped. 15 years, gone. Louise, are you insane? Her voice shot up so high Louise had to pull the phone from her ear. That's 15 years of my Social Security. I retire next year. You did this on purpose. You're destroying me. You were going to destroy me first. I was asking for what you owed me. You carried me on the books for 15 years, you don't owe me money for that. And don't think turning yourself in gets you off the hook, your company's going down too. You owe me nothing, Mina. Louise gripped the phone, steady. But maybe you should think about who's going to answer for Social Security fraud. You're the one who signed the contract, collected the wages, and enjoyed the benefits. A man's voice in the background, Brandon asking what was wrong. Mina ignored him. A commotion, then footsteps, a door clicking shut. When her voice came back, it cracked, suddenly pleading, Louise, I'm sorry. I was joking the other day. I'd never actually report you, we're sisters. Yesterday you said 3 days or I'd have investigators at my door. Brandon brainwashed me. He tricked me. He said you could afford it, that you'd pay because of our friendship. Louise, please, can you retract the report? Tell them it was a mistake, that there's no issue. A mistake. Louise couldn't help a hollow laugh. Mina, I have surveillance footage of you circling my office building for 3 days. Asking about my schedule, which entrance, where I park. You want to call that a joke? Silence. Just harsh, ragged breathing, like someone with a hand around her throat. Also, Louise continued, that tea house you're the legal representative for. I found out the Zhaos hold the controlling shares, you've got 30%. Brandon's drowning in credit card debt and gambling losses. Mina, who are you taking the fall for? How do you know all this? I was going to give you a chance. Louise's voice finally went cold. That night at my house, I intended to tell you. When you first sat down, I was going to warn you about Brandon's background. But you didn't give me the chance. You brought up the back wages. Louise, help me one more time, just this once. At your count, how many times has that been? 15 years ago. 6 months when you lived with me after your divorce. 300,000 when your business tanked. 200,000 when your mortgage was due. Mina, count them yourself. How many? I'll pay you back. Everything. With what? Louise's voice was eerily calm. Brandon's bled your tea house dry. He's maxed out your credit cards. Your live stream makes $2,000 a month. Mina, with what? Mina was sobbing now, raw, animal sounds. You can't do this, you're my closest person. Yesterday you said once you got the money, we were done. Your words. You said nobody wanted me, that money was all I had. Mina, I remember every single word. That was anger. It was. Goodbye. Louise ended the call and blocked Mina's number. She stood on the steps of the Social Security building, sun warm on her face. The screen went dark. Silence. General poked his head out of the car window. She'd brought him along since she had multiple stops and didn't want to leave him alone. He rested his chin on the window frame, black eyes watching her, tail wagging slowly. Louise walked over, opened the door, and ruffled his head. General, how do people change so much? General didn't answer. He just licked her palm, his tongue warm and rough, stroke after stroke. Louise started the engine. Sunlight streamed through the windshield, painting golden highlights on General's coat. A week later, the penalty came through. Back taxes, penalties, and late fees totaled $1,630,000. Late fees accounted for the bulk, nearly $800,000, interest accruing over 15 years. Owen winced when the final number came in. But it was worth it. Because the day after the penalty notice, the Social Security Bureau officially notified Mina, due to confirmed Social Security fraud, all her contribution records were voided, healthcare benefits received must be repaid, and administrative penalties for fraud would be pursued. The notice went to her registered address, the house she'd almost lost, the one Louise had bailed out with $200,000. Word was Mina was doing a face mask when the courier arrived. She read 2 lines, ripped the mask off, and called Louise 30+ times. All blocked. She called from a new number. Louise didn't answer, blocked again. On the 3rd new number, Louise picked up, heard Mina sobbing, gasping, "Louise, just listen." Louise heard those 4 words, "just listen," hung up, and blocked that one too. Then Mina showed up at Louise's office plaza. Louise had just finished a supplier meeting. She spotted Mina the moment she stepped out, thinner, hollow-cheeked, no makeup, sallow skin, in a wrinkled gray hoodie and messy hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. A world away from the woman who'd sat in her dining room picking her teeth and demanding over $1 million. Louise. Mina ran at her, voice raspy as sandpaper. Please, go talk to them, just once. I retire next year, I have nothing. People in the plaza turned to stare. Some employees recognized Mina and whispered among themselves. You have Brandon, Louise said, not breaking stride. Mina froze, then broke into fresh tears. He's gone. He took everything from the tea house. Maxed out the cards. I have nothing. That's what happens when you team up with someone to defraud your oldest friend. But I had no choice. He said he was in debt, that people were after him, that if I didn't help he'd go to prison. So he sent you to extort me. Mina opened her mouth, closed it. Tears streaked what was left of her makeup, black mascara running down her cheeks. He said you'd pay, because of our history, he said he'd take me to Yunnan, start over, never come back. 3 years with him, Mina. In 3 years, he never told you about the fraud conviction. The credit card lawsuits. His dad's brick kiln bankruptcy. Did you genuinely not know, or didn't you want to know? Mina sank onto her heels, hugging her knees, shoulders heaving. The posture was identical to 15 years ago, curled into a tight ball, face buried, back arched, a pitiful sight. But Louise looked at that posture and felt nothing. He said he was framed, said his dad got cheated too, said he'd be good to me. How many people has he cheated, Mina? His ex-girlfriend lost $200,000 and had a breakdown. You didn't know that either. Mina's sobs hitched. I didn't. Of course you didn't. You don't want to know anything. You just want sweet talk, flattery, an easy ride. So you figured I was an ATM, press a button, money comes out. Press again, more comes. 15 years, until you got everything you wanted. That's not true, no, Louise. That night at my house, you called me small-minded. Louise looked down at her. Mina, I treated you like family, and you said I was small-minded. So let me be big-minded now. What's yours, you keep. What's not, you don't touch. The Social Security issue, you deal with the Social Security Bureau yourself. As for Brandon stealing from you, I suggest you go to the police. Mina jerked her head up, eyes wild. The police? But he's your husband, but fraud is fraud. Your choice. Louise turned and walked away. General padded beside her, tail wagging lightly. As he passed Mina, he glanced back, then turned and followed Louise. Behind her, Mina's wailing echoed through the plaza. People stopped to stare, phones out, recording. Mina squatted on the concrete, a shattered clay statue in pieces. Louise didn't look back. Another month passed. Mina never went to the police. Word came through a mutual friend, Maylee. Brandon had called, tearfully apologized, promised to pay her back, asked her to wait. May called Louise, Louise, she's really suffering, maybe you could. Louise cut her off. May, she's suffering because of choices she made. I didn't make her choose Brandon. I didn't make her extort me. I didn't make her case my building. Every step to this point, she chose herself. May sighed. I just think, after so many years. Because of all those years, I can't go back. If I do, she'll never learn. May said nothing more and hung up. Mr. Fong called. The Social Security Bureau had issued its final penalty against Mina, repayment of healthcare benefits used, $68,472.30, fine, $20,000, and a 5-year ban from. After 5 years, she could restart, but those 15 years were gone forever. 15 years. Down the drain. Louise's daughter Yo-Yo came home that weekend. She listened quietly, sitting on the couch with her arms around General's neck, chin resting on his head, saying nothing for a long time. Mom, she finally said, voice soft, are you sad? A little. Louise poured her a bowl of soup. But more than that, I feel light. Like I've carried this backpack for 15 years and finally set it down. What about Auntie Mina? I mean, Mina, how is she now? Heard she went back to her hometown. Her mom's not well, she's taking care of her. Yo-Yo took a spoonful of soup, blowing on the steam. I remember she was really nice when I was little. She knitted me a sweater once, pink, with a little flower on the collar. I remember it so clearly. Yeah. She was nice back then. People change. Or maybe some things were always there, just hidden. Mina had always been selfish, it just didn't show while Louise had money and success. When Mina sensed the well might be running dry, that other face came out. Mom, would you ever help her again? Louise sipped her soup, pork ribs and lotus root, simmered all afternoon, the lotus root meltingly soft. She thought for a moment. No. Not at all. Not at all. She's an adult. She has to learn to live her own life. I spoiled her by always catching her fall. Now there's no net, maybe she'll learn to stand on her own. Yo-Yo nodded and went back to her soup. In the kitchen, the snow fungus soup Louise had started earlier was still simmering, fragrant sweetness filling the air. She'd almost forgotten it. Mom, who's that for? Yo-Yo asked. Louise paused. Who was it for? She'd made it out of habit, because Mina always loved it, always had 2 bowls. But Mina wouldn't be coming anymore. Never mind, Louise said. Pour it out. Yo-Yo didn't ask. She went to the kitchen and turned off the stove. Steam billowed when she lifted the lid, sweet and fragrant, then slowly dissipated. Evening light crept in, painting the living room a warm amber. General lay at the balcony door, tail sweeping the floor in slow, rhythmic arcs. Louise leaned back on the couch and closed her eyes. 15 years. Over. 3 months later, Louise's construction supply company landed a major municipal contract, a bridge support project. Not enormous, but profitable enough to cover the penalty and then some. The day the contract was signed, Owen actually opened a bottle of red wine, toasting, after the storm comes the rainbow. Louise laughed, drank half, and General snuck the rest, licked it clean and burped. Driving through the south side one afternoon, Louise noticed that Mina's tea house had changed. The old tea pavilion sign was gone, replaced by a red and yellow noodle shop, Old Lou's Noodles. A jovial, round man in a white apron was serving steaming bowls at the door. The bowls were generous, topped with scallions and chili oil, smelling heavenly. Louise pulled over and rolled down her window for 3 seconds. The shop was full. Good business. The owner wiped his hands on his apron and went back to kneading dough. A faded sign on the wall read, hand-pulled noodles, 18 yuan a bowl, extra meat 5 yuan. Mina had sold the place. Louise didn't know how much she'd gotten, or whether it covered her debts. But she'd heard Mina had gone back home, taken a job as a supermarket cashier, 3,000 a month, regular hours. No more talk of spirituality, live streaming, free spirits. Maybe that was good. Louise pressed the gas and merged into traffic. Her phone buzzed, Yo-Yo's voice note, Mom. I got the internship. The real design firm, not one of those tiny studios. Louise smiled. Congratulations, sweetheart. Let's celebrate, anything you want. No need to celebrate. Save your money. I'm going to support you when I start earning, I mean it. My salary won't be huge, but I can at least get you a scarf. Deal. Sunlight streamed through the windshield, warm and golden. Louise caught her reflection in the rearview mirror, fine lines around her eyes, a few silver strands at her temples. But her eyes still had that spark. The light ahead turned green. She eased off the brake and rolled forward. In the rearview mirror, the noodle shop grew smaller and smaller, finally shrinking to a dot and vanishing into the city skyline. General rested his head on her arm, warm and solid, then yawned pink-tongued and closed his eyes. Louise reached over and scratched his ear. Long road ahead. Take it slow.